Elena Hart understood what had happened before anyone found the courage to say it aloud. One servant carried away the chest that held her winter dresses. Another removed the books from the table beside her bed. A third was lifting the carved cradle Marcus had commissioned only a week earlier. Elena stood at the entrance to the royal corridor, one hand settling over the gentle curve of her stomach. "What are you doing?" The youngest servant stopped in place. An older woman beside him lowered her gaze. "We were instructed to clear the chamber, my lady." Elena asked, "For whom?" No answer came. It did not need to. Beyond the open doors of the great hall, the court had assembled. Council members stood among nobles from House Arden, and at the center of them was Alpha King Marcus Vale in formal black. Lady Celeste Arden stood beside him in silver and blue. Chancellor Garrick Thorne was addressing the room. With the grain agreement secured, the formal installation of Lady Celeste as Luna can proceed before the next council moon. Elena stepped into the hall. Marcus saw her immediately. Something unguarded crossed his face and disappeared just as quickly. Elena walked until she stood only a few paces from him. "My chamber is being emptied." Every conversation stopped. Marcus glanced once toward Garrick and then back at her. "Yes." For Lady Celeste? He paused just long enough for Elena to notice. "Yes." Celeste did not look victorious. If anything, she looked uncomfortable, but that only deepened Elena's confusion. Elena faced Marcus fully. 6 months before, behind the closed doors of that same chamber, he had put a small silver crown into her hands. It was not the heavy ceremonial crown of a Luna. It was an older family piece, meant for private occasions, and Marcus had told her that one day she would wear it openly, when the kingdom no longer needed them to hide. Elena had believed him. Now another woman had been given the chamber connected to that promise. Elena asked, "Was this your decision?" Marcus's jaw tightened. Garrick shifted, ready to intervene, but Marcus answered first. "Yes." Elena waited for more. She waited for Marcus to tell the court that she was carrying his child, or to explain why the woman who had shared his life was being displaced while another was publicly called Luna. He said nothing. Elena nodded once. "Then I understand." Marcus's voice softened when he said her name.
"Anna."
She looked at him. "Not here," Marcus said. "We will speak tonight." "You already spoke." She turned and left before anyone in the hall could see how carefully she was controlling her breathing. That evening, Marcus came to the smaller guest room where the servants had moved her things. Elena had locked the door. "Open it," he said from the corridor. She sat beside the cold fireplace with a silver crown resting in her lap. "Go back to your council." "I need to explain." "You had an entire hall in which to explain." "What I could say in that hall was limited." "Then perhaps what I mean to you is limited too." For a moment there was only silence. Marcus placed his hand against the door from the other side. "Elena, please." She closed her eyes. She had endured private meals, private promises, and private affection because the kingdom was still recovering from years of border conflict. She had waited for the day Marcus would no longer treat their relationship as something that could exist only behind closed doors. When the moment finally came, he had given her chamber to another woman and called that woman Luna. "Not tonight," Elena said. Marcus remained outside for several minutes before walking away. Elena never went to sleep. She packed only what had belonged to her before the palace. Clothes she had purchased herself. A pouch of coins from her year's working supply routes in the north. Pregnancy herbs. A notebook filled with old transport schedules. She left behind royal money and the jewelry Marcus had given her. The last object in her hands was the silver crown. She remembered the night Marcus had closed her fingers around it and said, "One day, you will wear this where everyone can see." Elena placed the crown on the pillow. Before sunrise, wrapped in a servant's cloak, she crossed the lower courtyard and slipped through the kitchen gate. She paid a vegetable merchant for a place in his wagon, changed carts in the first village, and boarded a northbound grain coach using her own name. At dawn, Marcus returned to the guest room and found the door unlocked. Elena was gone. There was no letter, no accusation, no demand. The only thing waiting for him was the silver crown on the pillow. He picked it up and felt a colder realization settle over him than anger ever could. Elena had not taken gold. She had not taken the crown. She had not left him something designed to force him to follow. She had walked away because she meant to stay gone. Marcus ran into the corridor. "Find her." Garrick appeared from the council stair. "Your Majesty, the Arden delegation is waiting." Marcus turned toward him. "Elena is gone." Garrick's face barely changed. "Then the guards will retrieve her." Marcus looked at the crown in his hand. No, the distinction became suddenly clear. Elena was not playing a game with him. She had left because she no longer believed there was anything to return to. Elena spent her first day keeping away from every road she knew the palace would monitor. At Belden, she sold a gold clasp that had belonged to her mother and used the money to pay a wool merchant traveling north. She touched no royal coin. She avoided inns near the main route. She switched transport twice. By the second evening, the towers of the capital had vanished behind the hills. Only then did she let herself breathe, as if the decision might actually hold. The baby shifted beneath her palm while she rested beside the wagon. "It is just us for a little while," she whispered. The sentence scared her and steadied her at the same time. Leaving Marcus had not erased her love for him. That was what made the distance hurt. But Elena would not bring a child into a palace where a council could reorganize their lives first and explain afterward. 3 days after leaving the capital, she arrived at Greyhaven, a northern settlement she knew from her earlier work on winter supply crews. Years before Marcus had entered her life, Elena had calculated how grain and medicine should be distributed when storms cut villages off from one another. Greyhaven's storekeeper, Owen Pike, stared when she walked into his warehouse.
"Elena."
His surprise sharpened when he noticed she was pregnant. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for work." "You came from the royal palace." "That does not make me incapable of counting sacks." Owen studied her for a moment. "Then start counting."
Elena smiled.
20 minutes later, the smile was gone. Greyhaven had received less than half the grain it was supposed to have received 2 weeks earlier. 3 neighboring settlements reported similar shortages. Elena asked Owen for the manifests. "Royal office says shortages," he told her. She compared the figures to what she remembered from the palace's winter allocations. The numbers did not fit. Marcus's council had approved far more grain for the north. If the palace records were correct, supplies were disappearing before they reached Greyhaven. "How many families are already rationing?" Elena asked. 36. "Children?" 19 under 10. Elena closed the manifest. She had intended to keep moving north, beyond the places Marcus would think to search. Instead, she said, "Show me every delivery record from the last month." Back in the capital, Marcus discovered that Elena had made herself almost impossible to trace. She had taken no royal horse. No palace carriage was missing. None of the jewelry he had given her had been sold. Garrick told him, "She is pregnant. She will eventually seek assistance." Marcus's expression hardened. "You say that as though her pregnancy makes her helpless." "It makes her easier to locate." Marcus turned the silver crown over in his hand. Celeste sat farther down the council table while Garrick reminded everyone that her installation as Luna was scheduled in 4 days. The Arden contract required formal recognition before the next grain shipment. "Delay the ceremony," Marcus said. Garrick stiffened. "The North is already reporting shortages." "How severe?" "Manageable.
For now."
"Another delayed shipment may change that." "Release grain from the Royal Reserve. We may need those stores if the Western Pass closes." Marcus stood. "Use half." Garrick's disapproval became obvious. "Your Majesty, emotional decisions are precisely what we cannot afford." Marcus's voice turned cold. "Finding the woman carrying my child is not an emotional indulgence." Celeste spoke from her place at the table. "Nor is feeding your northern settlements." Marcus looked at her. "Both can matter." Garrick did not like the observation.
Marcus studied the map before him.
He had already caused damage by behaving as though the kingdom and Elena could only be weighed against one another. He would not repeat that mistake. Release half the reserve. Delay the Luna ceremony 2 days.
Garrick started to speak.
Marcus continued. I am leaving tonight. You cannot personally search the countryside. Marcus placed a scrap of information on the table. A merchant in Belden had purchased an old gold clasp from a pregnant brown-haired woman heading north. Marcus knew the clasp. Elena had worn it when they first met. She is going toward Greyhaven. Garrick stood. If you leave now, House Arden may reconsider the alliance. Marcus looked to Celeste. Will they? She did not soften the answer. My father might. Marcus nodded once. Then I will deal with your father after I find Elena. Garrick followed him from the chamber. You are king before you are a husband. Marcus stopped in the corridor. And what am I before I am king? Garrick had no reply. Marcus found Elena in Greyhaven doing the last thing he had expected. She was not hiding in a room or waiting frightened at an inn. She was standing on a crate in Owen's warehouse, directing workers who were separating dry flour from spoiled grain. Move the barley to the back wall, she told one young man. The flour stays dry near the stove. Mrs. Cole's family gets their allotment tonight because her youngest is already sick. Owen asked, what about the West Farms? Half allocation until the next wagon. That will make them angry. Hunger usually does. Owen smiled. You have not changed. Elena answered, I have changed considerably. Then she saw Marcus in the doorway. The warehouse fell quiet. One worker bowed. Another nearly dropped what he was carrying. Elena did neither. Marcus stepped toward her carefully. You are difficult to find. That was intentional. I noticed. He looked around at the work happening under her direction. Can we speak? Elena handed Owen the manifest. 10 minutes. Outside, stacked lumber gave them some privacy. Marcus took in the exhaustion on her face. Are you well? Yes. The baby? Healthy. The relief in him was immediate. Elena saw it and almost let it weaken her anger. Almost, Marcus said. You left without telling me where you were going. Correct. You could have been hurt. I could also have been ordered back to the palace before I crossed the first bridge. I would not have ordered that. Elena looked directly at him. You gave my chamber to another woman without discussing it with me. Marcus had no answer that did not expose the contradiction. Instead he said, Celeste is not what you think. I do not know what she is because you told me nothing. The Arden Alliance controls grain access through the eastern routes. Garrick believes recognizing Celeste as Luna is the only way her father will guarantee supply through winter. Elena absorbed the information. So it was political. Yes. You do not love her. No. Have you touched her?
No, Elena nodded.
Then you believe that makes it better. I believe it matters. It matters. It does not fix what you did. Marcus lowered his voice. I was going to explain everything that night. After you announced it. The council could not know about your pregnancy yet. Why? Because if House Arden learned I already had an heir with another woman, they might withdraw before the agreement was signed. Elena stared at him. So you hid our child to secure grain. Temporarily. And gave Celeste my chamber because? Marcus hesitated. Her father demanded visible proof that the arrangement was real. Elena looked away at the falling snow. There it is. What? She faced him again. The part you still do not understand. I did not leave because another woman was prettier or because I thought you loved her. I left because men sat around a table and decided where I would sleep, what our child would be called, and what place I would have in your life. Then you carried out the decision and expected to explain it afterward. Marcus let the accusation stand. You are right. Elena looked almost more frustrated by his agreement than she would have been by defense. Do not agree because you want me back. I am agreeing because I was wrong. She studied him before reaching into her pocket for a folded delivery record. Greyhaven has another problem. What? More than half its royal grain allocation is missing. Marcus frowned. That cannot be right. The full allocation was authorized. Elena handed him the paper. Then it disappeared somewhere between authorization and delivery. Marcus read the figures. Garrick told me the shortage was kingdom-wide. Maybe it is. But these numbers do not match what I remember from the palace. Marcus looked up. You remember those allocations? Elena gave him a flat look. You used to leave council papers on my table while telling me I should rest. You read them? Someone had to. For a second, humor almost broke through Marcus's expression, but the numbers pulled him back. Come back with me. We can investigate this from the palace.
No, Elena.
I am not returning simply because you finally discovered I know how to do something useful. Marcus folded the paper. That is not why I am asking. Then why? Because I want you safe.
Elena's face cooled.
You still think safety means putting me where you can control what happens. Marcus stopped himself before answering. Then he asked, "What do you want to do?" The question surprised both of them. Elena said, "Trace the missing grain. Start with the last 3 deliveries. Wagon masters will know where the routes changed." Marcus nodded. "Then we start there." You have information I do not. I have authority to get information you cannot. Elena held his gaze. Do not mistake cooperation for forgiveness. I will not. And you do not command this warehouse. Marcus glanced through the doorway, where Owen was pretending poorly not to listen. I had already gathered that. Elena's mouth almost lifted. Marcus noticed, and the small change felt more significant than the silver crown still hidden inside his coat. The wagon masters gave them the first real answer. 6 weeks earlier, a royal order had closed the southern supply route. A second driver confirmed it. Neither man knew why. The next afternoon, Garrick arrived in Greyhaven with 20 guards, 2 clerks, and a sealed command. He entered Owen's warehouse while Marcus and Elena were comparing inventories. Your Majesty, this has gone far enough. Marcus looked up. Has it? Garrick's attention moved to Elena. Lady Elena, transportation has been arranged for your return to the palace. I did not request transportation. You are carrying the royal heir. Elena shut the ledger. I am aware. Then you understand that remaining in an underprotected northern settlement is unacceptable. To whom? To the kingdom. Marcus watched the exchange without interrupting. Garrick said, the heir is not a private concern. If something happens to you, the succession becomes unstable. Elena looked at Marcus. She could see the old instinct in him, the impulse to solve fear through command. I am staying, she said. Garrick turned. Your Majesty? The whole warehouse waited. Marcus looked from Elena to the escort. The escort will withdraw. Garrick stared at him. She is pregnant with your child. Yes. Then you have a responsibility to protect her.
Marcus answered, I do.
Then, more carefully, protection does not give me ownership of her decisions. Elena felt something inside her move. Garrick lowered his voice. This is how kingdoms become unstable. Personal feelings begin overruling institutional necessity. Elena said, no. People become unstable when institutions decide they are objects. Garrick faced her. You believe I enjoy these decisions? When I was 23, King Aldrin of Belmore refused a marriage alliance because he loved a common-born woman. His eastern allies abandoned him. Civil war followed within a year. I watched villages burn because a ruler believed his personal happiness mattered more than political reality. Elena understood the shape of his beliefs at last. Garrick did not simply dislike her. He believed love was a threat when kings allowed it to interfere with strategy. So, your solution is to remove personal choice entirely, she said. My solution is to remember that rulers carry consequences ordinary. Citizens do not. And omegas carry none? That is not what I said. A courier entered before the argument could continue and handed Elena a sealed letter bearing the crest of House Arden. Marcus's expression sharpened. The letter asked Elena to meet Celeste privately at the chapel outside Greyhaven. Garrick said immediately, You will not go. Elena looked at him. You are becoming very repetitive. Marcus asked, Do you want me there? No, the refusal clearly bothered him. After a moment he nodded. Then I will wait. Celeste was already in the chapel when Elena arrived. She wore a plain traveling cloak rather than the silver associated with her new title. Thank you for coming. Elena remained close to the door. Why are you here? Celeste removed her gloves. Because I owe you an apology. Elena asked, Did you ask for my chamber? No. Did you know it was mine? Celeste hesitated. Yes. Elena let that answer sit. Celeste continued. My father demanded the chamber because he wanted the court to believe the arrangement was permanent. And you accepted? Yes. Why? Celeste looked toward the narrow chapel window. Because House Arden controls 3 major grain routes, but my father controls me. She gave a bitter little smile. You and I have more in common than either of us should. Elena said nothing. Celeste continued. I do not love Marcus. He does not love me. I was meant to be Luna in title, attend ceremonies, and give the alliance legitimacy. My father expected the arrangement eventually to become a real marriage. Marcus never agreed to that part, but he agreed to enough. Yes. Celeste made no effort to excuse him. That honesty earned Elena's attention. There is something else, Celeste said. My father believes the kingdom has no alternative to Arden grain. Garrick agrees with him. Elena asked, the South warehouses? Celeste looked sharply at her. How do you know about those? Elena's eyes narrowed. I did not. Until now. Celeste realized too late that she had revealed more than intended.
Elena stepped closer.
What is in them? Reserve grain purchased after last year's harvest. Enough for the north? For several months. Elena's heartbeat quickened. Then why is Greyhaven rationing? Celeste spoke quietly. Because Garrick advised keeping the Southern Reserve closed. He fears that if it is used too early, the crown will have nothing left if winter worsens. And Arden grain replaces it. Yes. Elena saw the structure clearly now. Garrick's fear had created dependence, and Celeste's father had turned that dependence into leverage. My father offered guaranteed shipments, Celeste said. On one condition. A daughter of House Arden becomes Luna. Elena's earlier assumptions began to break apart. Celeste had not taken her place out of romantic ambition. Marcus had not abandoned her for another woman. Yet the truth did not absolve anyone. The system had turned both women into pieces in a trade. Elena folded Celeste's letter. Will you tell Marcus this? Celeste asked. Yes. My father will call me a traitor. Are you afraid? Very.
Elena nodded.
So am I. Celeste glanced at her pregnancy. You still left. Elena answered, fear does not always mean stay. When she returned to Greyhaven, Marcus was standing outside the warehouse exactly where he had promised to remain. He had not followed her. Elena noticed that before she told him anything else. Elena covered Owen's table with manifests, palace figures, and route maps. Marcus stood opposite her. Garrick remained near the door, and Celeste stood off to one side. Elena pointed to the numbers. There is grain. Garrick replied. There are reserves. Enough to prevent the crisis you used to justify the Arden arrangement. Temporarily. Celeste confirmed that House Arden expected recognition of the Luna title in exchange for guaranteed shipments through spring. Marcus turned toward Garrick. You told me the North could face famine within weeks. It could, if winter closes the southern route and the reserves are exhausted. You said the Arden alliance was the only viable solution. The only one with acceptable risk. Elena asked, acceptable to whom? Garrick did not answer. Marcus looked at Elena. There is something I need to tell you. The tone made her brace herself. I knew the Southern Reserve existed. Elena went completely.
Still.
How much did you know? That Garrick advised against opening it. I was told the roads were unreliable and Arden shipments offered the safest long-term solution. And you accepted that. Yes. Without asking anyone who actually worked those roads. Marcus looked at the map. Yes. Elena's voice tightened. Why did you not tell me any of this before giving Celeste my chamber? His answer came immediately. Because you were pregnant. The room quieted. Marcus understood the mistake in the words as soon as he said them. I meant that you were already exhausted. The physician said stress could be dangerous. So, you decided I should not carry the burden. Yes. You hit a political arrangement that replaced me as Luna because you thought the truth would be stressful. I thought I could solve the crisis first and explain it once the kingdom was secure. Elena gave a short, humorless laugh. Marcus, you still do not understand what you did. I am beginning to.
No.
You thought loving me meant deciding which truths I was strong enough to hear. Marcus looked around the warehouse at everything Elena had already done. The maps, the rationing plan, the numbers she remembered, the people who followed her instructions. His mistakes stood around him in physical form. Elena said more softly, I would rather be frightened beside the truth than comfortable inside a lie. Marcus did not defend himself. Garrick stepped forward. This is moving away from the actual problem. The northern settlements require grain. Elena turned back to the map. Then let us solve the actual problem. She marked 3 territories west of the closed route. Stone Creek produces barley. Red Valley has winter wheat. Pine Watch carries smaller reserves, but its mountain road usually remains passable after heavy snow. Garrick shook his head. 3 separate contracts. 3 pack councils. Higher transport cost. Poor coordination. Less dependence on one family. And far more complexity. Complexity is not the same as danger. Marcus asked, how long to make it permanent? Months. But I can prove the route in days. Garrick scoffed. With what wagons? Use half the Southern Reserve. Already approved for the North. Send a trial convoy through Greyhaven. Negotiate replacement contracts with all 3 independent packs at the same time. Marcus asked, cost? Higher than Arden grain for the first winter. How much? Elena calculated quickly. 20%, possibly 25% if storms worsen. Garrick said, unacceptable. Marcus asked Elena, what happens to the Royal Reserve? It drops significantly. And if the western border faces an emergency? Then the crown buys grain instead of buying a Luna. Celeste covered a smile. Marcus studied the figures. Can the kingdom afford it? Yes, if palace construction and ceremonial spending stop until spring. The room turned toward him. Garrick said, you would drain reserves and cancel royal projects for an improvised supply network. Elena corrected him. A diversified supply network. Marcus looked at her. Can you make it work? Yes. Can you prove it? Give me 1 convoy. Garrick started to object. Marcus said, prepare the convoy.
Elena blinked.
You are agreeing? You said you could prove it. Prove it. She narrowed her eyes. That sounded almost like a challenge. It was meant as trust. You are still learning. Apparently. Garrick left the warehouse in anger. That evening, Marcus walked beside Elena between rows of wagons being loaded for the trial journey. He took the silver crown from inside his coat. Elena stopped. Why do you have that? Because you left it. I know. I carried it because I thought returning it would make something right. Elena looked at the crown. Does it? No, the honesty landed quietly. Marcus ran his thumb across the silver edge. When I gave this to you, I said you would one day stand beside me openly. Then I let the court turn that promise into leverage. He put the crown away again. I will not offer it to you unless it means something different. Elena said, I do not need a crown. I know. If I ever stand beside you, I still need to stand on my own feet. Marcus nodded. Then I have been asking the wrong question. What question? Not how do I bring you back? How do I build something you might choose to return to? Elena gave him no answer. Yet that night, for the first time since leaving the palace, she did not dream of going farther north. The convoy left Greyhaven before sunrise. 12 grain wagons and 4 supply carts rolled out under guard. Elena rode in the lead wagon beside Owen. Marcus rode alongside them. Garrick had argued until the last hour that Elena should remain behind. Marcus had objected too, though he tried to do it differently. You are 5 months pregnant, he told her before departure. Elena raised an eyebrow. An impressive observation. The road is difficult. I know. I worked it before I knew you. I would prefer you remain in Greyhaven. Prefer is an improvement over command. Marcus exhaled. I am serious. So am I. Then tell me why you need to go. Elena pointed to the convoy. If something goes wrong, I need to see why. A report afterward will not tell me if the slope was too steep, a bridge too weak, or the load badly balanced.
Marcus thought about that.
Then I am going too. You do not need to supervise me. I am not going to supervise you. I authorize the risk. If it fails, I should see the consequence. The argument ended there. For 2 days, the convoy moved well. Elena adjusted load distribution at each stop and kept careful notes. Marcus surprised her by listening to drivers rather than issuing orders. When a wheel cracked, he helped lift the wagon while the axle was changed. In the evenings, they talked with a frankness that had never existed inside the palace. Marcus told her how he became king at 29 after his father's sudden death. Everyone said the kingdom needed certainty, he said beside the fire. I learned to make decisions quickly and explain them later. Elena replied, that works in battle. Marcus gave her a tired look. Not in love. Apparently not. He smiled faintly. Elena asked, Garrick was your father's advisor? His closest. When he said the Arden alliance was necessary, trusting him felt like trusting the structure that held the kingdom together after my father died. Elena asked, and trusting me? Marcus took longer to answer. Felt dangerous. Why? Because you mattered in a way policy did not.
If you
disagreed with me, I could not hide behind rank without knowing exactly what I was doing. Elena looked into the fire. So you avoided asking? Yes. That is not very flattering. I am attempting honesty. Continue practicing. On the third morning, a storm rolled down from the mountains faster than expected. Snow swallowed the road before noon. Near Alder Pass, a messenger reached them from the capital carrying an ultimatum. House Arden would cancel its grain commitment unless Marcus returned within 24 hours and completed Celeste's Luna ceremony. Garrick saw the opportunity immediately. This is the final warning. End this experiment. Return to the capital. Celeste read the letter from her father. He means it. Marcus asked, if I refuse? He closes every eastern route to royal contracts. Garrick pointed toward the worsening weather. Which leaves you with this. Elena studied the route map. We are less than a day from the northern depot. On a road that may disappear tonight. Marcus looked at Elena. Your assessment. Garrick stared at him. Marcus had asked instead of ordering. Elena traced the route. Crow River Bridge is our largest risk. If ice damages the supports, 12 loaded wagons will not cross. Alternative. An old logging road west of the river. Garrick laughed. Abandoned 20 years ago. Because full wagons are too wide. Then it is useless. Not if we split the loads. Elena marked 2 paths. 6 lighter wagons take the logging road. 6 continue toward the main bridge. If the bridge fails, at least half the grain still has a chance. Marcus asked, which group are you taking? Logging road. No, Elena looked at him. Marcus shut his eyes briefly. That came out badly. Very. He tried again. Why you? Because I know the road. You knew it years ago. Which is more knowledge than anyone else here has. Marcus's fear showed openly. I do not want you on that road.
Elena waited.
He forced himself to continue. But I will not forbid it. That mattered. Take Owen and 6 experienced drivers, Marcus said. I will take the main road.
Elena nodded.
You should stay with a larger convoy, anyway. If my group fails and yours succeeds, the kingdom still has its king and half the grain. Marcus almost smiled. There is the woman who plans for everyone except herself. She did not deny it. He came closer. Do not disappear on me again. Elena held his gaze. Then do not give me a reason to. Before he could answer, Garrick called for the guards. For soldiers moved toward Elena's wagon. By emergency council authority, the trial convoy is suspended. Marcus turned sharply. I revoked your unilateral authority. Medical authority. Not state emergency powers. Garrick produced a council decree. If the king acts under personal influence in a way that threatens food security, the chancellor may preserve the existing alliance until full council review. Marcus read the seal. You planned this. Garrick answered, I planned for the possibility that love would make you careless. Elena stepped down. This has never been about love for you. Garrick faced her. It has always been about consequences.
No.
It is about control. You would rather force the kingdom into one fragile alliance because you understand it than allow a better solution you cannot guarantee. Better? Your convoy is trapped in a storm. And yours leaves us dependent on one family forever. Marcus tore the emergency authorization seal from the decree. Garrick stared. What are you doing? Correcting another authority I should never have allowed one man to hold. The council will challenge you. Then the council may challenge me. Marcus turned to the guards. No one prevents Elena from taking the logging road. Garrick said, if she fails, the North may go hungry. Elena answered, then help us succeed. For the first time, Garrick looked uncertain.
Marcus face de Elena.
I will meet you at the northern depot. She nodded. Neither of them knew whether they would be able to keep that promise. The logging road had deteriorated far beyond Elena's memory of it. Trees bent over the narrow track under heavy snow. Twice, the drivers had to cut through fallen branches before the wagons could move. Elena ordered each load reduced and left grain under tarps in a marked clearing for later retrieval. Losing time was dangerous. Losing an entire wagon would be worse. 3 hours into the route, the road turned along a ravine. 4 wagons passed. The 5th lost traction. Its rear wheel slid off the packed earth, and the wagon slammed into a tree before it could fall. Grain shifted violently. The horses panicked. Owen shouted for everyone to clear the slope. Elena climbed down. Do not unload from the uphill side. The weight will pull it farther over. A driver asked, then how do we move it? Elena studied the wagon, the slope, the tree supporting it, and the rope hooks under the frame. Lighten the front. Anchor the rear to those 2 pines. Then pull the wheel back onto the road. Owen looked at the cargo. There is not enough room to unload all the grain. Elena glanced at the 2 smaller carts carrying royal trunks and ceremonial equipment for Marcus's planned northern inspections. Unload those. Those are crown property. So is the grain. The men hesitated. Elena opened one chest. Inside was silver plate intended for formal dinners. If the Alpha King wants his plates, she said, he can come dig them out in spring. A crack came from the tree, holding the wagon. Ropes now. They anchored the rear. Men pulled. The wheel moved several inches and slipped again. Elena saw the problem. Still too heavy. Owen said, if we dump grain, we defeat the purpose. Not grain. She pointed to the remaining royal carts. Everything else. By the time royal baggage had been thrown aside, Marcus's half of the convoy had reached Crow River and found the bridge damaged. His 6 wagons could not cross safely. A new messenger from the capital arrived with worse news. House Arden had suspended grain shipments. Garrick held out the letter. There is still time. Marcus looked at him. For what? To prevent humiliation from becoming disaster. Return to the palace. Recognize Celeste. Arden grain moves by morning. Celeste dismounted nearby. No, Garrick turned. Lady Celeste. She held her father's letter. I will not become Luna. This is larger than your preference. That sentence has been used often enough. She tore the letter in half. My father can close his routes. He cannot force me to stand beside Marcus. Garrick looked at Marcus. Then command her. Marcus almost laughed. Have you learned nothing? A rider appeared from the west carrying a message from Elena. Marcus opened it. Logging road blocked. 1 wagon unstable. Route may still open. Need additional rope and men, if main convoy cannot cross. Marcus asked how long it would take to reach her. 2 hours if the ridge remains open, the rider answered. Garrick said, you cannot abandon 6 wagons here. I am not. Marcus turned to his captain. Secure the grain. Build shelter around the teams. When the bridge is passable, continue north. Then to Garrick, you wanted consequences. Here is mine. I authorize this plan. I am going where it may fail. Garrick followed. Celeste went too. When Marcus reached Elena's group, the 5th wagon was still hanging against the ravine. Elena stood beside the ropes, soaked with snow, one hand pressed to her lower back. Marcus dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. Are you hurt? No, the baby. Angry with me, probably. Relief moved through him. He clearly wanted to pull her away from the slope. Instead, he asked, What do you need?
Elena pointed.
More weight on the uphill ropes and someone strong enough to turn the front wheel when it lifts. Marcus removed his coat. Garrick stared. You are the king. Marcus handed the coat to Celeste, which apparently does not make me useless. He joined the drivers. Elena arranged everyone. On my count, do not pull before I say. The supporting tree groaned. 1. The ropes tightened. 2. Marcus braced himself.
3. Pull.
The wagon shifted. The wheel rose. The tree cracked again. Elena saw it. Stop. Everyone froze. If it gave way while the ropes were loaded, the wagon could drag men over the edge. Elena studied the anchors. One rope sat too high. We need a lower pull. Owen said, There is no lower tree. Elena looked at the abandoned royal carts and their heavy iron axle. Break the ceremonial cart. Garrick stared. That cart was commissioned for the coronation tour. Elena looked at Marcus. This decision was his. Marcus did not pause. Break it. They removed the axle, buried it into the inside bank and redirected the rope. The angle changed. Elena raised her hand.
Pull.
The wagon rose. The wheel caught the road. The supporting tree broke a second later and fell into the ravine. Elena released a breath. Marcus looked at the scattered silverware, the broken cart, and the muddy sacks. How much did we lose? Almost no grain. Elena glanced at the wreckage. Your luggage suffered terribly. Marcus smiled. I will attempt to recover emotionally. The route opened before nightfall. 6 wagons reached the northern depot a few hours later. Settlement bells rang when the grain entered the yard. Families came out carrying lanterns. Elena stood beside the first wagon while Marcus helped lift down the first sack. Garrick watched from the edge of the crowd. His system had promised certainty by concentrating the kingdom's survival in one alliance. Elena's network survived because it could adapt. The other 6 wagons crossed the repaired bridge the following afternoon. Within a week, Stone Creek, Red Valley, and Pine Watch signed temporary supply agreements. House Arden remained free to trade, but it could no longer threaten the kingdom with starvation. Celeste formally gave up the title of New Luna. Her father protested. She did not reverse her decision. Marcus returned to court and accepted public responsibility for the cost of opening the reserves. He canceled 2 palace expansions and a ceremonial hunting lodge to restore the treasury. Garrick listened while the orders were read and finally said, You were fortunate. Elena stood at the council map, not behind Marcus's chair.
No.
We prepared alternatives. Garrick looked at her. There is a difference. Marcus did not answer for Elena. He did not need to. Marcus's decision about Garrick surprised the court. He removed him from the chancellorship, but did not pretend the man was a simple traitor. Garrick had manipulated information and used emergency authority to force a result, yet his choices had come from a genuine conviction that one unreliable alliance was safer than uncertainty. Marcus changed the system that had made that conviction so powerful. No single chancellor could again control emergency decisions alone. 3 signatures from separate offices became necessary. Garrick's warnings about unstable food supply still mattered. They simply stopped being unquestionable because one man had spoken them. Celeste returned briefly to House Arden, then later accepted a post as trade envoy, a position she chose for herself. Elena remained in Grey Haven through the rest of winter. Marcus never ordered her home. He visited when the council allowed him to travel and wrote when it did not. Their relationship repaired itself through smaller acts than the ones that had broken it. Marcus asked before making announcements that involved Elena. Elena gradually stopped assuming every invitation concealed a command. When they disagreed, he did not retreat behind rank. When Elena wanted to inspect another difficult route late in her pregnancy, Marcus asked the royal physician what precautions were necessary rather than forbidding her to go. Elena told him afterward, "You are improving." Marcus replied, "Your praise remains devastatingly restrained." I would not want you to become arrogant. Too late. Their daughter was born in Grey Haven at the beginning of spring, healthy, dark-haired, and loud enough to wake half the settlement. Marcus arrived 2 days before the birth and spent the first night afterward sitting beside Elena's bed while their daughter slept against his chest. No council watched them. No proclamation had been prepared. In the morning, Elena found herself looking at him and remembering the dawn when she had left the palace alone. Marcus noticed.
What?
Nothing. That expression usually means something.
Elena smiled.
I was thinking about the crown. Marcus's face became careful. It is still where you left it. In the guest room? No, where? My desk.
Elena laughed softly.
You kept it on your desk for 4 months? It was difficult to ignore. Perhaps that was useful. Extremely. Elena did not return to the capital immediately. She waited until the Northern Supply Network no longer depended on her being present every day. When she finally chose to go back, she did so because the palace no longer felt like a place where returning automatically meant surrender. Marcus asked which chamber she wanted. Elena looked at him. You are asking? I have been advised that asking questions produces better outcomes. By whom? A particularly difficult Omega. Elena chose her old chamber. Not because it had been returned to her as compensation, but because she wanted to reclaim a room that once belonged to a version of herself who had waited for permission to exist openly beside him. On her first evening back, Marcus arrived carrying a small velvet box. Elena knew what it contained before he opened it. The silver crown lay inside. The same crown she had left on the pillow before dawn. Marcus set the box on the table between them. He did not lift the crown. I once thought giving this to you was enough, he said. Elena looked at the silver. You gave it to me in secret. Yes. Then gave my public place to someone else. Yes. He offered no defense. That mattered more than another apology. Marcus touched the edge of the box. I will not put it on you. Elena raised her eyes.
No.
Not unless you want it. Their daughter made a sleepy sound from the cradle near the window. Elena glanced toward her and then back to Marcus. And if I do not, then the kingdom learns to live without seeing a crown on your head. And if I want to continue working on the Supply Council, then I will try very hard not to leave documents on your table and pretend you are not reading them.
Elena smiled.
That might be your greatest sacrifice. Marcus stepped back. He left the crown where Elena could choose it or ignore it. Months before, leaving that object behind had been the clearest way she could tell him that a promise meant nothing if someone else controlled what it required from her. Now its meaning had changed because the choice had changed. Elena reached into the box. She lifted the silver crown herself. Marcus remained still. She placed it on her own head. This time, Elena said, I choose it.